It isn't easy finding an opening for a film that is supposed to be about reading non-fiction film. In a recent review of a fiction feature film in a national newspaper, the critic says, "The director is not just a big name, but a good storyteller who simplifies a few historical nuances, making the movie an easy experience and not just a documentary that we have to bear with." Apart from other terrible assumptions, the most damaging is the one about the documentary being something other than storytelling. Often, when we have to define the documentary, we say that it holds up a mirror to society. And while saying that, we forget that the mirror we meet every day in our private lives is perhaps the greatest storyteller in the world. When we look in it, we have to wonder, what looks back? Is it who we are or who we imagine we are? It isn't very different with the twin mirror world of the documentary. This mirror shows us what we think and make of reality. This mirror tells us stories of our world. Robert Flaherty must have realized this in 1922. He went off to shoot the Eskimos in their habitat to bring their reality to his world. He shot for months and came back with hundreds of hours of footage, but could not make anything of it. He couldn't get even close to showing what he felt when he saw these indomitable people battling their ruthless, extreme environment. He realized, paradoxically, that his film would become real only when it had a story to tell. And he decided to tell Nanuk's story. Nanuk the brave, the hunter, the husband and father. Nanuk who struggled every day to survive. Flaherty arranged scenes and staged sequences to mimic Nanuk's life. Clearly, it did not just remain Nanuk's story. Though it was about him, it was really Flaherty's story of Nanuk's life. Flaherty, like the numberless documentary filmmakers who have followed, became a storyteller. It seems redundant then to claim that documentaries can be objective. How can someone's point of view be objective? How can a person ever see in a way that is not his or hers? Obviously, we can only show what we see, and what we see is framed by so many complex factors. It is framed by the stories that we are told, by the stories that we grow up with.
Rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3, rule number 4, rule number 5, rule number 6, rule number 7. Yes, ma'am.
And it is rooted in the images that go with those stories.
The money is necessary, but it is never sufficient.
The real story of the documentary is probably the story of choices that every filmmaker has to make to translate reality to film. From life as it is, unframed and untold, to images and sound, to the signs of life. The camera transforms the real into an image and separates them forever. It also creates another separation, another equation of power between those who look and those who are looked at. But we can't really observe this separation because seeing through the camera seems so natural, just like looking. The audience assumes an imaginary position behind the camera. It's as if all of us are looking directly at what is going on. We are guiding our gaze. We are involved in the act of watching. But obviously, it is the eye at the camera and not the audience that holds the gaze, that selects what part and how much of the real we get to see, and also in what way we get to see it. An image is a powerful thing. Everything in it can mean more than it seems. It is so potent because it taps into those shadowy spaces in our minds where symbolic meanings are formed. For us, images can often open up private and collective memories. They can kindle and fire our imagination. They become powerful because when we see them, we charge them with feeling. Somehow, the image gives us a sense of having a sort of special access, as if we are privy to a heightened reality, something that is more real than reality itself. But while the image is compelling, it is the editing that decides what each frame will finally mean. One shot placed after another creates a new meaning.
The money is necessary, but it is never sufficient. That the money is necessary. But it is never sufficient.
Understanding the power of images put together, the power of montage, is like a key that lets us into the inner world of a film. Filmmakers have always used the montage as a tool to direct the audience to the heart of their stories and to what they believe in. Some filmmakers have amplified this bias to such a degree that extreme views start to seem reasonable. In their hands, the montage and film can become a frightening force. They can demolish an existing reality, and they can reconstruct a completely different collective reality. The point is that not everything we see in films works at the level of such obvious propaganda. But most of what we see in non-fiction still has its own underlying ideology. Films often use the taken-for-granted ideas and values of our times to tell their stories.
But I am at the moment insistent on focusing on Al-Qaeda and on Islamic extremism.
These are the sort of background assumptions that we live with every day. Ideas we don't question because they are made to seem so normal and familiar. It is these ideas that come together to form a dominant cultural map of meaning. And all stories must find a space for themselves on this map. Just like any other story, non-fiction stories can also do one of two things. One, they can press for the status quo. They can support the dominant view of things. Most of the non-fiction programming that we see does push for more of the same.
Well, I mean, you seem like a different person. That could be your mother.
Beauty is power for women. It gave me so much more power. It's amazing how when you look different, people treat you differently. I've had my upper and lower eyes done, 2 nose jobs, 4 facelifts, cheek implants, dermabrasion on my forehead, laser resurfacing, fat transfer in my nose to mouth lines and upper lip. I had breast implants, liposuction from my waist to my knees. Aside from that, everything you see here is natural.
What are you going to do to keep this look up? Are you going to go shopping? What are you going to do?
I'm gonna buy some nice lipsticks and clothes. I'll go out shopping for shoes.
TV ownership is now largely commercial, and when most of the revenue has to come from advertising, the viewer is permanently positioned as the consumer. Within this structure, it is very difficult to rock the boat and create content that pushes against the interests of those who sustain the system. Which is why that other kind of story, the kind that pushes against the status quo, has to be outside the mainstream.
Paisano amonguepe alguno betu. Ange ore kaagui ambairamin. Heite angave ore koipona veta. Tema endu aramo manguarere.
These films are funded by filmmakers themselves or by not-for-profit bodies. They answer that basic fundamental impulse, the impulse to ask questions and to drive off the road a little. This is the kind of story that can challenge powerful institutions and ideas and give voice to the margins. But this is the story that struggles to be heard because mainstream media will not acknowledge it.
Ara wasa o teko I nyemo ponandu ka ekwera mitoyo. Baeranya oiko jana nyemo ponandu weimanam.
And for the longest time, this is how it has been. One discourse that is dominant and its opposite, the dissenting voice that counters it, forming two parallel worlds of film. But now, other ways of looking at this divide might be emerging. There is now the documentary that asks the difficult questions, but that the mainstream has to accept, because it manages to do that one magic thing that makes the media circus go round. It pulls people into the multiplex. It holds them to their TV screens through the commercial breaks. And by the one-track logic of the mass market, the very structure that it questions is forced to support it. The thing is that there are many roads, many ways, and in fact, there are as many kinds of film as there are people holding that camera and looking into the mirror world. Because ultimately, our view of those others, that community, gender, person, situation, probably says as much about us as it does about them. The idea that at least some of what we see is in our own eyes is a compelling one, because from this space, the filmmaker's voice is born. Often, films are labeled according to categories that their voice seems to belong to. The poetic film articulates an inner reality. The world that we see on film represents something that is an internal experience.
Very, very gradually, everybody withdraws their faith that you are coping, and then you're on your own, and then you're in hospital. Coming down from being high, you feel a sense of loss and utterly role-less. It's like, I had a role, I was a student, then I had a role, I was in a hospital, then I came out and I had nothing. So you feel that you don't have a place and you don't have a meaning anymore. It's like it's a constant, not even white noise, it's like a tone.
וככה כשפלסטינים פה אנחנו משחקים אותה.
Some documentaries are called cinema verite because they seem to give the impression of simply observing an external reality.
Nobody knows about us here. Nobody in the world.
But whatever the label, there is something that makes each film unique. And that element has to be the film's individual voice. It is the voice that gives the film its identity and its conviction, that makes it real for us. Because all of us realize that there is more to the truth than facts. Truth draws its weight from belief. We make it true by believing in it.
We cannot let the terrorists achieve the objective of frightening our nation to the point where people don't shop. Where people don't shop.
Domkhedi village, Maharashtra, 1994. By the time you see these images, this village may no longer exist. Every year, Adivasis from neighboring villages gather at Domkhedi to celebrate the harvest festival of Holi. The word Adivasi literally means the original inhabitants.
It is a strange and complicated thing to find ourselves in the world. What sense do we make of it? what is really worth believing in? How do we find it? And then how do we express it? That really is the center of the documentary. In some way, in our own way, we need to find a language for the world that we inhabit.